That's not what we are. We are constantly in this state of evolution. And what our whole reason for being in this human experience is to walk into all these things and let the experience not break us, but break us open, which is expansion.
Hello and welcome to the New Thought Men's Podcast, where we explore what it is to be a healthy spiritual man today. I'm Eamon. It's great to have you with us. Hello and welcome to the New Thought Men's Podcast, where we're building healthy masculinity in the world. It's great to have you with us. I'm Eamon, and today's guest is David Ault. Let me share a little bit about this amazing guy here. David is a visionary leader in the human potential movement who has been promoting mindfulness, global literacy, and social justice for over 30 years. He's traveled the world as a teacher and heart-centered guide with the sole purpose of bringing our collective forgetfulness into our great collective reawakening. As an award-winning author, leadership and personal coach, and global education advocate through his nonprofit, the Kaleidoscope Child Foundation.org, a nonprofit organization that empowers vulnerable children and communities worldwide with sustainable education, life skills, and clean water. Welcome back, David. It's great to have you with us.
Really nice to be back with you. Thank you.
Yeah, brother. We had such a great time last year that I'm so grateful that you came back and we can have another wonderful conversation here. I want to start it off with, I guess, we just finished your sharing for the New Thought Men's Summit. And it was just so beautiful. Like the Buddha story that you started out with was beautiful. Will you share that with us just to kind of get us going?
This is a story that I heard actually a long time ago. And then recently in the advent of social media and Instagram and, somebody did, and I was like, oh my God, it's been forever since I heard that. And I began to recognize that it was such a part of me, the practice of it. And the story goes that a Buddhist monk was teaching his students and he asked them a question. And the question was, if you're carrying a cup of coffee and someone bumps into you, why did you spill the cup of coffee? And unanimously, every student says, because of the person who bumped me. And he kind of smiled and inquisitively and said, really? And he said, every single day, the world is going to bump into you. And whatever it is that you decide mindfully to put into your cup is what is going to spill out. So if what you put into your cup is just another version of the collective fear, then what will spill out and the day will bump into you a myriad of times will just be more fear, anger, all the other things that go along with what we would call sort of living by default or unconsciously. And it's just this beautiful way of bringing mindfulness back in and understanding that it's true, in this lawfulness that we live in, that if there's an intentionality of cultivating a practice every day, you see yourself as the cup. What do I want to put into this? And regardless of what goes on in the outside world, and it does, then we will see how all of that practice then exemplifies itself by the way in which we express, by the which we engage with humans. And I would rather be more mindful about what I'm putting in my cup because everybody wins. It's not, you're not promoting suffering or the same old. There's something about being in the human experience, and wherever you go, we're not fearful or living in prevention energy, trying to not be bumped into, it's just going to happen. Yeah. But there's an equanimity in there that's become accustomed to, because that's what we have devoted ourselves to put into our metaphoric cup.
Well, there aren't 9 billion people on the planet for us to not run into each other. Like, this is the experiment that we have going on, that we get to participate in, and so we can either choose to do it consciously, as the New Thought philosophy espouses. Hey, we can choose, or we can go off those unconscious, those entrained, those old patterns, those old woundings, the input that we get from media, social media, all the stuff, which, I'd rather be a choice. I'd rather have that choice. And so we get to preemptively fill that cup with the good things when we start with our daily spiritual practice, or centering, or prayer, or something like that, that's really going to help us, help sustain us, that coffee that will sustain us through the day, or tea for those of you who are not, I'm not a coffee drinker, but for that chai tea to then, sustain me through the day, as it were.
And what's so great about any practice is that there is sort of an outgrowth of a practice or a method, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually an indication that something bigger. It's that kind of phrase, it's not too bad to actually bite off more than you can chew, because it's in the chewing that you come to the realization that, oh, I'm far more capable of something expansive than I thought I was. Yeah. But there has to be a leaning in. There has to be the ability to sort of take that practice as far as we can take it and get to the back of the metaphoric cave, and then go, what's next? And then the door appears to what's next. And that's the kind of thing that I have experienced in spiritual practice. It feels as though there are things that might be considered primary only because that's where my mind is. My mind is primary at the time. So it feels primary. And then there is this advancement. And then the paradox is that some of the things I thought I was primary were actually really advanced. And now it's like, now let's take that deeper. It's like mirror work. I think people may be familiar with the fact that Louise Hay was my first spiritual teacher. And she was like my spiritual mama back in the 80s. And I traveled with her as a part of a singing group. And if anybody knows Louise Hay and they know about her practices, she was a big advocate for mirror work. She was telling people to look in the mirror and to tell themselves, I love you, I really love you, which for many people was radical. I remember when she went on Phil Donahue, and Phil Donahue had mirrors for the whole studio audience, but they made a joke out of it. Everybody was laughing like it's this comical thing, because people are uncomfortable with looking at their own reflection and doing this very vulnerable, intimate acknowledgement. And yet, even when I first heard it and I was like, then you start to see, oh, I can do this. And it becomes like a practice. But then it was funny. It's like, I must have categorized that as, okay, that was kindergarten, and now the practice will be this. And it hasn't been until recently in certain classes and practices and groups that I've worked with that mirror work has come back. But now it's at a whole different level. Yeah. And so it wasn't primary. It's whatever it is that we are ready for. So to be able to sit with your reflection, and then to do these kinds of these practices of what is that is observing the observer, and get really, really deep in being aware of being aware, and to use the mirror as a part of that. One begins to recognize that there's far more than me just staring at the personality. Now it's, what is the thing that knows that I'm staring at the personality? And that's what I really, it gets trippy.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things, I'm putting into my cup every day. It's like, how much further can I take this practice?
Yeah.
I'm open.
It's powerful, and I think it goes through those kind of the waves or the processes. At first it's uncomfortable, then you get comfortable with it, then you get bored with it, then all of that, and then you have an epiphany, and then it's something totally new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think daily spiritual practice is like that too. It's like we can spend a lot of time, I keep doing this every day, or a ritual of some kind, same thing. Oh, I'm doing this every single day, and it's kind of rote, or it's kind of, I'm bored with it, or, whatever it is. And then it finds that place where then it goes ka-chunk. Mm-hmm. It just goes to a whole new level, and it deepens. Beautiful.
It's like being willing to bring a freshness to anything,
Yeah. We were talking about the world of causation, what we put into our consciousness. What are we putting in there? And in your talk for the summit, you were mentioning, what frequency are we emitting? And I love having these conversations, as I've done a lot of energy work and Reiki and different healing modalities. And so I'm fascinated by, the energy, the toroidal field around us, the energy that surrounds us, and then the energy that's within us, the chakric field. You can call it different things, but it's the inner and outer energies. And I think this is how the law of attraction works to a certain extent. We resonate in a certain frequency. We're resonating with peace, or with love, or with abundance. And when we're truly in that space, that literal vibration is going out, and that's being attracted to you. So I know most of us start out in that thing of, how am I manifesting a parking spot, or money, or all these things. But when we deepen in this philosophy and in this practice, it's really like, how am I embodying peace? How am I embodying love? How am I showing up? How can I be of service? And when we're putting that kind of energy out there, how can I help today? How can my gifts, impact someone in a good way, or impact the world, impact those that I'm going to connect with? So it's really fascinating. And, I invite everybody to play with that, because it is such an interesting thing. And how do we shift our energy into something different? Well, that's a great way. I think for me, always asking, how can I be of service today, is a huge game changer, because then it goes from, how can I get my stuff done? How can I do the to-do list? How can I do that? Well, that stuff kind of happens automatically, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's okay. But it's more about, for me, like getting myself out of the way and saying, what is it that I'm really here for? Mm-hmm. Do I want to be all in this doingness, or do I want to be about the beingness of my heart and of my soul, to be able to show up in the world and go, oh, okay, yeah, I can see this person's having a rough day, and simply quietly bless them, or just say hi, or just be, genuine with someone. Listen to them. I don't know. I find it fascinating. The energy which we emit. Mm-hmm. I'd love to talk a little bit about, because you shared this beautiful story about the El Camino trek for you, and this passage, this pilgrimage. For me, I would say, and pilgrimage is maybe a little different than rite of passage, but for me, that's how I can kind of translate it into my experience. And so will you share that story? I know you were starting off, let me just start you off here. You were starting off with the pandemic, and your nonprofit, the Kaleidoscope Child Foundation, is, like everybody going through this pandemic, and how can you do something for that and raise money and be of service? And you decided on the El Camino track. So take it.
Yeah, it's I know that everybody who is involved in nonprofit work, there was a point in the pandemic where programming is stopped or everything is stopped. And so at some point you have to go, what do we do? What do we do for funds? What do we do from our donor base? What do we do about the things that make up ours is global education, right? And so one of those things was, as this thing is lifting, as we're coming out of this fog, there's going to have to be some expanded strategy about fundraising. And I had done my first Camino as far back as 2009. Mm-hmm. And that was the traditional route. I think most people who research it or know about it know that particular route. It's the most famous one. And you start at the base of the Pyrenees and you walk the whole northern border of Spain to what's called Santiago de Compostela, which is where there is a cathedral. That's where the apostle, the St. James, is buried. And so it's an old Christian pilgrimage that dates back to the Middle Ages, but now it's not confined by that. It's really even one of the most oldest pilgrimage existence in on the planet, but it has such a rich heritage in terms of devotion. And today, it's very popular. It's something very popular to do, and there's a multitude of treks. And I was kind of fascinated by doing the Portugal trek, starting in Portugal, and then walking to Spain. And so I did the whole thing, which starts in Lisbon. And my idea for a fundraiser was to film it every day. I'd make a little video, and I would invite people to support me at, pay, donate to this particular page that was dedicated to my walk with a goal. And it was kind of a lot of work to have to walk and to be a social media star and to motivate people to give. And I think some days I look so road weary that people gave out of pity, but it was working nonetheless. And you get your maps, you have guidebooks. Everybody's got their little way of navigating how long it's going to take or how much they're going to do on the pilgrimage. And I knew that on this Portuguese route, there was a mountain. And I think there was a nickname. It was called the Billy Goat Mountain because only billy goats should be up there. I mean, and you start reading it and I'm like going, oh man, because I have this thing about if I can go on and on, I mean, I have incredible endurance, but I do not have the speed. And so something like a mountain is going to take that day and extend that process of walking by hours. And it's over 100 degrees. This was in July, and it was over 100 degrees every day. So I was getting up at 4 and starting on the trek and trying to get to the next stop for the day before the heat of the day. So I'm thinking about all that, and I'm thinking about, a mountain. And so I noticed that the closer that I got to this day, the more anxious I became, all the way up until that day. And I was like at the base of that at 6 a.m. and I was already drenched in sweat. And I'm sitting there and I'm just wishing it were over. Anybody ever wished something was over? That was it. That's just the basic primal thought. I wish this was over. And right in the 1,000th time of wishing that it was over, this thing said, but it's not, David. And it won't be until you start walking. There's nothing you can do it. You might as well do it because it's only going to be over by you participating in it. And all of a sudden, this idea of process, like I wanted the process of walking over the mountain to be over. I wanted to fast forward. And then this thing clicked in. My mind is so crazy sometimes. I thought, I know, I'm going to play a game. And while I'm walking up Billy Goat Mountain, I'm going to think of something that is void of process. There's got to be something within the human infrastructure of all life that is void of process. And I'm like going through and I'm like, nope, nope. Yeah. I wake up in the morning and something exciting is happening at night, no matter how much I hope that, it wished that it was night. It's not going to be. It's going to go through the process of the human hours and just things like that. And all these ideas and wishing that or waiting to begin certain things in my life only when this was finished, wishing this thing were over. So again, wanting to futurize the process, recognizing that wanting to be anywhere than where you are in the process of anything is a form of suffering. And that's why mindfulness is so geared towards practicing the now, stopping and breathing with everything, every single stimulus that you can creatively incorporate to help all of us keep returning to the now. And because without that, we are just 1,000 light years ahead, or living in prevention energy, or just, being sucked into the collective rage and fear and mob mentality that is so heavy and so dense and so filled with suffering. And so just something as simple as, and all of a sudden I go, be here now. And I went, oh, how many times have I read Be Here Now from Ram Dass? And I go, that's what the title meant. Like, it was revelatory the first time, like I actually got it, that what he was saying is you can't rush the process no matter what. And so you start to see the intricacy of how every single day we are all guilty of wanting to rush the process.
It's so interesting, David, because it reminded me of the movie Click that Adam Sandler did, where, I don't know if you've seen it, but he has this magic remote control and he's like, I can fast forward through different parts of my day, and it auto senses when he fast forwards through his workday. He fast forward through this thing that he didn't want to be at. And, then it starts fast forwarding on its own. And before he knows it, he's on his deathbed. And he's like, wow, I didn't actually live my life. That was my life. So it just reminded me of that. What that in those processes is our life. How we show up in and through those processes is who we are and how we engage the world. Yeah. Sorry. Being here now. It's like, I remember living in Los Angeles long ago, and I lived in the Los Feliz area, if people are familiar with Los Angeles, near Griffith Park. And I took this part-time job in Santa Monica. And people who are from LA know that there is no direct route from Los Feliz, Burbank area to Santa Monica. And that commute in the morning for a 9 a.m. job was like, it's not far, but it was almost 2 hours. I mean, there was just no way around it. It was grueling. And I had not had anything like that for a while. And so there was a lot of complaining. There was a lot of just arriving or wishing I was there, and really coloring the whole way in which I showed up for that job. It was not pretty. Yeah. And I wasn't even that skilled back then, but something told me, you're the one that's responsible to change. Either quit the job or you're going to have to turn this into something else. And I had this beautiful book of poems by Rumi. It was that Coleman Banks edition that was illustrated. And so I just grabbed that book one day. I had a truck. You would have been proud. I had a truck back then. I'm in my truck, and I've got this Rumi book beside me on the cab seat. And I just go, I'm going to start memorizing a poem a week. So Monday morning, I'd just pick a poem out of this book, and I'd prop it open, and I would look down, and I would take like a line, and I'd practice that one line while I'm driving from
Los Feliz area to Santa Monica. And then I'd do the next line. And my goal was, I'm going to memorize this poem by Friday during these commutes, back and forth.
Wow.
And I swear to God, by the time the rhythm of doing that kicked in, it was almost like I couldn't wait to get into my truck. I couldn't wait to get in the cab and start to do this because it was working. And it was like time just disappeared. And I was in this capsule of trying to bring these words in and try to ask myself, what does it mean? And being curious about what is the meaning behind this. And some of them were just so incredible. And that whole thing changed that entire commute. So you start to see whatever it is that we're blaming about the thing or that we're wanting to disrupt, it's never about the thing. It's what we bring to it.
Yeah.
It's what we bring to it.
Good choice too. Rumi is just magic. That stuff is
I think about that a lot. I go, wow, that was
somewhere else.
But
I don't want to get too far off track because I can get a little squirrel here and there.
Squirrels are good.
I want to hear the El Camino track because I know there's a richness to that story, especially around your own poem really of Broken Open.
Yeah. So prior to getting to this mountain, I had taken a detour on the Portuguese route to a place called Fatima. And I was not raised Catholic, but every Catholic's going to know what Fatima is. And so that's the story about the visitation of Mary to these three kids. And that happened in Portugal at this place that's called Fatima. And now they have built this incredible, massive cathedral there. And it's, oh my God, it's stunning. And there's all these devotees and there's all these people walking on their knees in penance. And it's just this massive thing. And I had decided to venture and go see this. And I had had this idea on my way. This is before Billy Goat Mountain. I had this thought that let me tell the social media people, let me tell everybody that's kind of following my trip, that if they want to send me a prayer request or anything to take to Fatima, that I would be happy to do that. I said, I don't know what to expect when I get there, but I'm sure I'll know when I get there. And boy, a couple of hundred requests came in on social media. And so I took them off, cut and pasted them on my phone into this thing where I could access it. And again, I didn't know where to go. And it wasn't the main cathedral. It was like a side chapel that I wound up in that was perfect. It was quiet. It was white. There was no iconography anywhere, like no heavy crucifixions or anything. It was just white. And there was one massive painting. And it was of Mother Mary and the three kids. And the way it was positioned in this room and the way the sun was coming in, it was just beaming on Mary's face. And I thought, I have never seen a painting like that before in my life. And I was just in awe. And I go, well, there she is. And I'm in my sweaty clothes and I got my backpack on, and they're used to that because pilgrims come through there all the time. So I took my backpack off and I sat. And I got my phone out and I just started reading the prayer request to this painting in this chapel. And I sat there and went through all of them. And then I sort of closed my eyes and just waited. I wasn't going to get an answer for every 200 people, but I thought, what is the collective thing that would speak to everyone that has sent this request in? And all of a sudden, I started to get this sort of dictation, and I slowly opened my eyes, and I just was typing with my thumbs as fast as I could. But it was long, but the first 4 lines of that in that chapel at Fatima were, I hope you're enjoying this podcast.
to connect with our community of like-minded men and access our full library, including summit talks, meditations, podcasts, weekly online men's groups, and so much more. Become a member today at newthoughtmens.community/membership. And now back to the podcast.
Bread feeds when broken open. Soil grows when broken open. You are not broken. You are the world's nourishment continually being broken open by design. And I was like, whoa, because that spoke to me, and it spoke to this universal collective belief that we share about unworthiness or being broken or, comparing ourselves, and that's not what we are. We are constantly in this state of evolution. And what our whole reason for being in this human experience is to walk into all these things and let the experience not break us, but break us open, which is expansion.
Yeah.
And that expansion doesn't occur until you and I lean into it. And that was, I would tell people, that's what I would kind of put into my cup. It's like, keep breaking me open. Keep breaking me open. I just break away, break me open, and let me become, or let me dissolve myself from any identity that I have carried that thinks that I'm broken. Or that I'm less than, or that I'm damaged.
Yeah.
And that was part of climbing the mountain too.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought of, you don't have speed. And it's like, who cares? You're the one that's making up that story in your head. No one cares.
Yeah. So it's so true that we have those, we have these perceptions, I think, as a society that say we have to have it all together. We have to, and this is so true on social media, looking like you've got it all handled. You've got, your business or your looks or your, whatever your thing is. And it doesn't allow us humans to be human. We literally grow through the flaws, not through the successes that we have typically. I mean, we can grow in that way too, but more often for me in my life, I have grown through the failures. I have grown through those being broken open to something new. Mm-hmm. And because of my own personal history, I feel I'm broken, right? I felt that. My own personal story, let me just interject my own personal story here. And this about me, I'm dyslexic. So I have this neurodiversity thing, and probably ADHD, and other people have told me other things. So, it's like, okay, whatever. And so with that, I really got the message that I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not, I wasn't good in school. I was the problem child in my family. I was the one who needed extra help and support. And, unfortunately, we didn't really know this until I was 30 years old, right? So we've gone through the whole process thinking, why am I not living up to my potential? Oh, it's actually a neurodiversity thing that for me, reading and math were a very difficult thing. And so I've had to work so hard against that. And it took me going back into the wound. It took me going back into ministerial school and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go through this most painful thing of school that I've ever done in my life. And I vowed I would never do again. I went into the wound and came out of it with a unique perspective of how my mind is very creative, of how I think very differently than other people, how I store information is different. I am not going to rattle off stuff that I have like memorized, poems out of my mind. I so wish sometimes, because it's so cool.
Don't take a job in Santa Monica then.
Okay.
Because you'll have to drive a long way, and you'll have to think of another way to be in the now of that process.
But it was the healing process and shifting that perceptive lens that we talked about earlier, shifting that perception, shifting that understanding that this is a gift. It's not my brokenness, it's my broken openness and my gift to give to the world. And
just look at the spaciousness of just changing that word.
Yeah.
From broken to broken open. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And when I'll give the credit to Mary saying, you're not broken. You are the world's nourishment, continually being broken open by design. It's not a one and done thing. It's an ongoing evolutionary experience of expansion based upon how much of our willingness to put that into our cup is, because it can get very uncomfortable when the being broken open just keeps going. Sometimes like celestial speed up.
Beautiful, David. I loved that poem. It just is so powerful and beautiful. And I love the questioning. Nothing is void of process. And you were joking in the talk, I think to me, but maybe not, maybe I'm over importanting myself, but you were like, even when we get sick, don't we want to be, better? And here I've been sick all week. We had to postpone. And I'm like, gosh, darn sickness. And instead of going, I just came back from the Antian conference, which was amazing and wonderful in Unity Village. And my body was literally telling me, hey, dude, I know you got plans and to-do lists and all this stuff, but bam, you're going in the bed for 3 days. Sorry, dude.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it reminds me that everybody's experience is so vast and nuanced. And there are a lot of people that I am blessed to talk with and spend time with who are in chronic pain. And so when you start to talk about things like this, you can see that we're not all standing on the line of our human experience in the same spot. And I think what I have appreciated about continuously being broken open is that my main message right now is not so much the specificity of how all this lawfulness works, but more about wherever you are, can you hold that here and then hold this other part? So if this is the human, can you also hold this other idea of what you are at the same time? And what I mean by that is, I can only speak for myself, but in my entry point of spirituality, there was an interpretation, I own it, an interpretation by me that if I do these things, then this thing will disappear. I will have conquered it, and I will never have to deal with that again. Maybe I'm the only one, but that was the way in which I was, targeting my practice, because that suffering was crap. That was awful. That was a very just unrelenting thing, that if I do these things, I don't have to look at that anymore. I don't have to deal with that anymore. Maybe I'm not the only one that we kind of interpret these particular tools or principles or anything that's instructional, and we think, oh, this is the 7 steps to do this, or, master this thing in 10, blah, 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 whatever. And I've come to realize that that's not true. And by that, I mean, this world that we call humanity and Earth or galaxy or the cosmos or whatever, it's like it's one channel of a gazillion channels. That's a true number now of so many dimensions that we can't fathom.
Yeah.
All happening at the same time. We forget that. We forget that we are in one movie, and we think that this movie is it.
Yeah.
This one channel is it. That's why we get so wrapped up in the preservation of this body, this identity, David, all these things that just take over our lives. And when we are in chronic pain, naturally we're going to want something to be gone, want it to be over, want something to come in. And it doesn't have to be physical pain. It can be mental pain. And when you start to look at the delicacy of talking about these things to a much bigger group, right? Then it's not a different teaching. It provides a nuance to the way in which the teaching is presented. And I love that right now, because what I do is we all practice. I know you do this in your men's gatherings, is this compassionate listening. Yeah. As they tell the story, or as they express the story or the pain or the wounding, there's a timing to it. There's an ability to let them move through that, to expel that, not to indulge in it, but to let them have the space to be able to get that and to listen without an agenda.
That's huge.
Then if it's invited, if it's permitted, then you start to talk about this paradox. You start to talk about, in this world right now, we are in this body, and we are in this situation, and we are in this thing. And what we are getting to do now is to not wish that it was over. What we are doing now is not wanting to medicate it, run away from it, do anything to avoid it, but find a way in the immensity of its presence to recognize that it is there. And at the same time, can I begin to consider that there's more than just this? And I know that it sounds simplistic as I'm telling it, but it's like that great example in Buddhism about, so we think that we are the human in the movie. We think that the movie is real. So, they would call that phenomenon, or a cloud. What you and I are, is the sky. The cloud is what is called the phenomenon. So the cloud is the identity, the pain, the wounding, the suffering, the turmoil, the storms, all the things, right? And so we forget, and we think that we're that, when what we are is sky. And yet at the same time, we're not dismissing any one of these. Both the absolute and the relative are necessary and important. And that's what the practice is now. It's not trying to get rid of the pain. It's like, how can I now love the pain? How can I have tenderness and compassion for the pain, rather than wishing it was gone, or deeming it wrong, or letting it be the juice that continues to fuel the machine that tells me that I'm not good enough. And it's a different approach. If we are listening, it's a different approach than trying to affirm something to get it away. Now it's recognizing that it's just part of the dance. And sometimes the dance is really difficult. And sometimes the dance is filled with all kinds of just tremendous things that have been a part of this karmic loop, right? And in no way, though, does that dismiss the fact that what we are, our very true essence, our nature, is this immensity, immeasurableness called the sky that is beyond description. You know, the Buddhists did say that you're pure essence. You are pure essence. Right now, you are sky as this figure that has devoted yourself to leading these men's groups and so many other things that you do in your life. And it's taken on the costume. But what you are is sky. And if you break that down and that becomes a practice, that's what you put in your cup. You know, I love to mow the yard. So it's like I'm mowing the yard and I'm going, I am sky mowing the yard as David. I am sky at the supermarket taking my little coupons so I can make sure that I stay in my budget as David. And you start playing with this and you're recognizing now I understand what Christ meant. Be in the world, but not of it. Be in this, you're here, we're on this human plane. Do the dance of being human. Do not go and climb on the mountaintop and avoid all of this. Be in it. Come down from the mountain. Get into the world. Be the advocate. Be the spokesperson. Be the thing, the hands and feet that helps eliminate the suffering. Honor the humanity. Honor the suffering. Honor the way. Find a way to feed and to house and to nourish and to remind other people that we're not dismissing this or making it wrong. We're holding two things now.
Yeah.
And we came in as sky to do this dance. And even when it feels like there's nothing there to support us, all we have to do is remember. Yeah. And some days that's really challenging.
Yeah, it is. David, that's the essence of the men's work that we do with the New Thought men's community. We are telling that story. We are sharing that pain. We are, allowing the tears, allowing the story that has never really been listened to. In some ways, we can't get it in society. You may be able to get it with a close group of friends, but to have that focus and that holding it and listening to the story, but also knowing that that's the cloud and that man is the sky too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the beauty of what I get to do in practice in men's groups. And I was just remembering of this one time, a friend of mine that I was in a men's group with for many, many years. He is involved with work in ALS, and he invited me in to be a part of a men's group for men who have ALS. And I tell you what, brother, there is nothing more humbling than something like that. I mean, I'm literally in a group with a man who's like, you know what? I'm in a lot of pain. I can't do anything. I feel, helpless. My family has to do, my caretakers have to do everything for me. And literally, I don't think wrestling with, but coming to the decision that he's like, I'm not going to get a feeding tube. I'm not going to get all these things. So this will probably be the last meeting I'm on, you guys, because I'm probably going to die before the next one. And it was just like, oh shit, man. You talk about humbling. Mm-hmm. You talk about when you're in that situation, you talk about that being broken open. Like, yeah, I thought my perception was here and it just got blown away. And I think that is the paradox of us, right? Like we are these spiritual beings, and yet we're in this human, we're in this human experience. We're the infinite and also this finite. Um, you know, that is the paradox, literally, that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I had about 3 weeks ago, I had the best one-on-one session I've ever had in my life. I was in Reno, Nevada, and I had done this weekend, and this man came to the workshop, and usually I'll stay an extra day, and anybody who wants to sign up for a one-on-one, we do that. And he had advanced Parkinson's. He had had it for now 12 years, and he was only 72. So it had started fairly young, but everybody who was in his care circle was also at the workshop. And he was a part of this spiritual community, and everybody loved him. And it was his birthday. And we were talking about the subject of worry and, you know, these different approaches to looking at the paradox of worry. And just a basic question like, what are you worried about? And he raised his hand, and they helped stand him up. And he said through his broken speech that he was worried about continuing to live because he didn't want to. And so as we talked very gently, he was able to say, and people were able to say how much they love him. And I think because they love him so much, they don't want him to go. Yeah. And he's in so much pain. And he was kind of cursing his brain, you know, like this brain is, and I said, will you do me a favor? And I brought him in, and I was in sort of an arena type of auditorium, and I got behind him and I held him up, you know, and I said, we're going to do just like a 360, and everybody's going to just say, I love your beautiful brain.
Yeah.
And we just went around, and everybody was crying, and it was just like, I love your beautiful brain. And I didn't expect it, but he signed up for a session the next day, which meant that his caretakers had to bring him in. And then I thought, I wonder what we're going to do for an hour sitting here. And it wasn't supposed to be the same kind of session, right? And he had his little walker with the wheels on it. And I said, can you tell me what life was like before Parkinson's? And he said, oh my God, I used to hike. I used to do all these things outdoors. And I said, do you ever go outside now? Do you ever take your walker? And he goes, I used to. He says, I used to until I found that exercise extends my life. So I stopped exercising. And then he said, and then I was just a big chicken shit. And so I started, you know, a little bit. And I said, if I help you, do you want to go for a walk? And this church had this massive parking lot, and it was a beautiful day. And so I got beside him, and we got him on his walker, and we went, and we just went to the parking lot, and we're walking. And it's like, don't say anything, just walk. And he told me he lived on a cul-de-sac, and I looked over, and there was a cul-de-sac attached to this parking lot. So we walk this cul-de-sac, and we're looking at, you know, it's autumn and leaves are changing, and we're saying a couple of things about the inevitability of change or whatever. But basically, we're just being with one another. And we got back to the middle of the parking lot, and he said, I'm tired. And I said, okay. And I said, do you want to stop here for a minute? Because he had one of those pull down seats. And he said, yeah. So we're standing in the middle of this massive parking lot in Reno, Nevada on this beautiful fall day. And I said, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of a Joni Mitchell song. And I'm like, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. And he goes, ooh, ba, 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 ba. And we both started laughing. And he goes, do you like Joni Mitchell? And I said, I love Joni Mitchell. And he starts to sing me a Joni Mitchell song in the middle of this parking lot in Reno, Nevada. And we're just being with each other. And it was so incredible. And I was so moved. And we looked up at the sky, and I swear to God, unanimously, we started to sing together. And we went, I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow. And it became so personal. I've looked at life from both sides now. And we just looked at each other, and I said, you do know how much you're loved, right? And he said, yeah, that's why wanting to die is so hard. And I go, just know that you did everything right, because the only true mastery, the only true thing is to surround yourself by people who love you. And I said, good job. And it was this ability to honor somebody, it's like, oh, thank God I didn't want to push through like a traditional session, what a bunch of crap, just to be able to meet people where they are. And that's what I mean when we talk about these principles and these teachings. It's like sometimes you got to be aware that there's a way that we meet people where they are. That isn't going to be textbook. It's not going to be verbatim. It's going to be sometimes in the quiet. Sometimes it's going to be singing a Joni Mitchell song in the middle of an asphalt parking lot. And sometimes with the men that you're with, it's going to be recognizing that everyone's unique, and the way in which their story is heard and perceived and held and honored, and what they'll do with that. Yeah. The tricky part, I think I know that you have, is at some point, what then moves them from the story?
Yeah.
Right? What moves any of us from understanding that we're not broken? Because, man, it's like, if what you're looking for is validation that you're broken, then that's what you will find. But if what you're looking for is validation that you are the world's nourishment, being broken open by design, then by golly, that's what you will find.
Yeah. Back to the mirror work, life is that mirror. That's what we put into it, we get out of it. And that's it. And some guys will come into a circle and tell their story once and they're done. And then, I was in a men's group where we'd just be like, oh, he's going to tell that story again. Okay, sure. Yeah. Tell it as many times as you want until you're done with it. And, I told my stories until I got sick of them, right? I'm like, God, you guys still listening to me? This is such bullshit, man. And, eventually we do get sick of them because we recognize that we're so much greater than that. That is a part of the history, and the blessed history, if we can bless it, that got us to this point, that got us to this point, that got us to the next point. It's a part of, like you said, our evolution, that spiral upwards that we're on. We can fight it as much as we want, but we are in this world, on this planet, to evolve, to move and grow and learn and experience. And so when we can actually look at it and say, oh, here's the blessing. Here's the sacred wound, as we call it in men's work. Here's the sacred wound. That thing that just crushed you, the dyslexia that crushed me over and over again for years. My childhood growing up, my young adulthood. This thing that had just crushed me, and yet it became who I was. It sent me to Warren Tech Center my junior and senior year to learn construction. And then I started my own businesses, and doing construction, and became just excellent at it. That was the gift. That, if I hadn't been dyslexic, I weren't a kinesthetic learner,
Mm-hmm.
and, hadn't gone out onto the job site and were pounding nails and literally building a house, I would have succeeded at that. I would have succeeded at the school part of it, and I would have missed this, what has been a huge part of my life. And now moving from building houses to helping build, community, helping build lives, helping build this greater possibility in this world that I think that we're all seeking, this spiritual perspective to say, oh, as messed up as that was, I wouldn't be me right here, right now without it.
Yeah.
And so when I think of it like that, it's like, how can I think of it badly? How can I talk of it badly? How can I be mad at my mom still, for giving me exactly what she gave me, as traumatic as it was?
It's respecting the entirety of your journey. It's like, there's this phrase called your karma is your dharma. So your karma, like this blueprint of how you came into with all the things, all the cast of characters, all those things have led up to the dharma, the work that is meant for you to do in this world. And when you see it that way and you go, it's so meticulous. It's like a blueprint that says, okay, here are the cast of characters. These are the things that will happen. This is the culture, the genetics, all the storylines, all the bumps, and all of that then is setting you up for this particular thing. When I heard your karma is your dharma, I went, oh, love that. Because that's what this is. It's like, both of these things get to be honored. Over here, I got to brush my teeth. I got to pay my taxes. I got to be responsible, humanly responsible. I got to obey traffic laws. I got to do all the things that live by this sort of Hippocratic oath of do no harm. And in doing that, I'm honoring the karmic loop as David and what is mine to do in this world. And combined with that, I get to know that I am Sky. Yeah. It changes the whole way we show up.
Oh, David. Okay, we did like almost 3 hours of recording last time, so we're going to have to, which I loved.
That's my fault,
It was so much fun. And this has been so much fun, David. Thank you. Before we go, though, you have something exciting, and then I have a final question for you. I really want you to share some, and we talked about this last year, this movie that you were making about the Kaleidoscope Child Foundation and these kids around the world in India and is it Guatemala?
It's Cambodia and India are my two signature schools, and then we have works in Guatemala, and then we do something in Kenya, and then we do work with U.S. initiatives in global education as well.
So I know that they were busy filming this last year, and Marcy, I saw Marcy at ANTN, and she said she saw it, and it was incredible. So can you just give us a little teaser on the movie and what it's about? Just talk a little bit about that. We're 21 years is the origin of all of this, the inception of why this came to be from an event that happened in Cambodia with very starving children. And there was something that happened, and I made this vow. And so that's become my life. That's become my dharma. And it's been within about the last 3 years, even coming out of the pandemic, it's like, it's time to start talking about a succession plan and what are we going to do? And can we do that without getting lost in the future? Can we hold two things in one hand? I want to die while I'm doing this, right? I have no plans of leaving, and as long as they'll have me. And so, but what do we do to be in the world and be smart?
How do we strategize? And one of those things is an endowment, which is a big undertaking. It's the way in which you have enough money that you can begin to pay for administration stuff from interest, and 100% of donations go to programming. It's just sort of like this guarantee that the schools and the little economies that we have created in Cambodia and India with families and jobs and students and all these things and lives and the villages and everything, they have a chance to continue, you know? And so there's a human pressure with that. There's a I can over responsibilitize like the best of them. I've stayed up many a night in 20 years thinking about, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so anyway, it was like, what are some things that we can do to begin to break open into creating a succession plan and even possibly an endowment? And we were just throwing out big ideas, and somebody said, let's do a documentary. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I swear to God, 3 weeks later, I got a call. And it was from somebody who—
when you declare it, man, you got to be ready.
Yeah, it's like somebody found me in Science of Mind magazine. This guy from Milwaukee, a filmmaker from Milwaukee, he made one documentary a while ago, and he had been trying to get another work off the ground, and it wasn't happening. And anyway, he was taking my writings in the magazine, and they had a little group that they started in Milwaukee. And an idea for another project came to him, and he contacted me. So we talked. And as we were talking, he goes, you know, I think this is my next project. And we started to talk about Kaleidoscope and filming the origin story and what would that look like. Well, let me just tell you, that was a massive, massive undertaking. Not only pulling the financing to make a film out of the ethers and not disrupting our programming, but then getting a crew and visas and press permits and flights and paying them and relinquishing creative control. Like, oh my God. And we left last year on New Year's Eve. And it took approximately 45 days. And I was the last shot on the last day was just me and my administrator in India. So we had started in Cambodia, then we moved everybody to India. And by the end, there was over 100 hours of footage. And that adrenaline, it's like I ran a half marathon every day for 45 days, getting them to the sites, getting my field people all in position, because if we're going to this village, I'm bringing a crew, they've got to be there. I've got to have backup to make sure that they don't wander, it was all this kind of setting up and managing and storytelling and I was craft service. I was everything for 45 days. And I put them on a train in India to Calcutta, and I made each of them have like a backup on a hard drive of all the film. Each of them had different I was just like hyper managing them to the point where they got back to Calcutta and they got on a plane. And the moment they got on the plane, they texted me, we're on the plane. I just, in India.
Yeah.
And I went to my friends. I have friends that live in near the Himalayas in India, and there's this cave. And I said, "Can I come stay for a few days?" And I went to them, and I just went and just prostrated myself on this cave. You're just going, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
And just I would say that I was nauseous for a year because not having any creative control. They came into my attic here in Atlanta, went through all my boxes, took pictures and photo albums and VHS tapes and neon soap operas, and I mean all this kind of stuff. They just went through all this kind of stuff. And the director's name is Michael. And I just said, I have one request, just one request. Don't make this about me. We live in a society and at a time on this planet that if you're not careful, this is going to be a white savior project. This cannot be that. And if it is that, it will do more harm for the organization than good. And I get emotional. I was so concerned that they were like, we know what we're doing. And I probably asked him that 30 times throughout this entire year. And September, they finished. They finished in record time because they wanted to get it submitted to Sundance. And so they sent me a link, and my husband and I, we watched it on the little Bluetooth on the Apple TV, and I just bawled like a baby. I could not believe it. And I will just say that they did a magnificent job, and part of it is embarrassing, because there's a lot of things in there, but and also too, though, the last piece is I've worked really diligently in noticing and honoring the path of asking and the way in which it brings up a lot of things that appear to be indifference in the world. You have something that you're passionate about, you talk about it, you give your whole heart to it, and it may not hit for anyone. And it's the same with this work. And it was the same with this work for a lot of years, that everybody's got their own stuff, that they're having to deal with. And so I thought I had kind of become accustomed to being actually truthful and asking without attachment, and just kind of leaning in and breaking open and doing whatever. And then watching this film, and I had this weird thought that I know you think that you're good at non-attachment and putting things out there, but this is going to take it to a whole different level. And then the other part was, how did I get so fortunate out of the 8 billion people on this planet that there's a freaking movie?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty
What's
wild.
the name of the movie, David?
The movie's called Kaleidoscope Child. And it kind of shows what happened to me and why the caring of a child was so necessary. Like the action of caring for a child was so necessary. And I got, it's really something. So yeah, all of next year, it's looking at how can us and the creative team go to these festivals and do these things, plus be a spokesperson for a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
We had one screening, well, we've had two now, but we had one screening in Atlanta, and already 2 strangers that came to the screening via other people. I've already met with them twice about they were just like, okay, I'm all in. And that's encouraging.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I know we're going to do something special to, help promote it once, it's out, and, DVDs or whatever moves on. And today, though, I do want to say we can't give a huge one because we're not a huge organization yet, but we're going to give a donation to the Kaleidoscope.
Oh, thank you. That's incredible.
I personally love you, brother. And it's just incredible work that you're doing. And I want to support it. And our community wants to support it too. So
thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Love what you're doing. And keep doing it.
What I've learned is that probably by next March or April, like I could take it to like spiritual centers or, Mile High or something.
Beautiful.
As long as there's no charge for it, it doesn't break the festival rules, but they could give a donation, to Kaleidoscope or something.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. So who knows? Coupled with festivals, I might be doing the bigger church route, and if they want to host screenings of it, they could do that too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I know a few people at Mile High Church.
Do you?
I know you do too.
maybe you could talk to those powers that be and see if they would, hey.
I'm actually interviewing Josh a couple weeks from now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's going to be. I can relate in my own way. Please do not ask Asa what my first summit last year was like, because I can relate in my own very small way as to a massive project like that. And it is a huge undertaking. So I just honor you for it and wish you well. I'm just holding that high vision of, Sundance and, those other festivals that'll give, just some really high profile viewings and accolades to the powerful work that you've done, brother. Just taking care of the children, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What a fun. Okay. Thank you.
So final question before we go.
Gosh, you're going to have to edit this thing,
I know. We're already at minute, an hour 20, but that's okay. We'll do a long one for you. So
nobody's going to watch
it. What's that?
Nobody's going to watch it.
No, they will.
Cancel. I don't put that in my cup.
It's beautiful. Let's not put that in our cup.
Right.
But and it's almost ironic, because what does divine masculinity look like in the 21st century is the question I've been asking. And you kind of epitomize that in the sense of, service to others. And I just honor you for that. But let me let you answer that. I should have let you answer it first. Sorry. But why don't you answer that? Because that's our theme this year is divine masculinity. And
what my mind does with the phrase is it stops with the word divine, and it asks me, what does that mean? So when I think of the phrase divine, then I'm talking about the coloring that and the encapsulation of something in the most holiest of states, so the divine masculine is then what is the holiest representation of that which is seeding life into the world, even through the archetype of the protector or the provider or the hands and feet of the action, that is working in tandem with the soil or the womb that is taking what it is being given, and they unite this way. And so it's the consciousness of being sort of the hands and feet that is taking an action in the world in a way that remembers that it is done in a way that doesn't see it as need. Divine masculine to me is being able to lift and not label things or anyone as being in need, because then that keeps them locked in the identity of being the one who is in need and me as the one who is helping the need. But it's the hands and feet. The divine masculine becomes the hands and feet, the provider, the protector that raises people up for them to remember that they are sky.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Okay. So you can find David at davidault.com, AULT, davidault.com. And David, I'm just so grateful for you being here again this year, and we'll have you back next year as well, if you're willing. Always love our conversations. Thank you so much for who you are and what you do in the world, brother.
Thank you. All right. My love.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. There's more to come, so stay tuned in.